Binger and Beo were best of friends since they were toddlers. They really loved each other and always shared everything together to the extent of having the same profession. They were both hunters together. They hunted for animals for years, and it became clear to the villagers that wherever you found Binger, you would surely find Beo and vice versa. The two friends went to supply bushmeat to a very wealthy man known as Chief Alabi one day, and they were received warmly by the chief's daughter, Abigail. Abigail served them food and palm wine and started chatting with Beo. "You look so handsome," Abigail said to Beo. "You are extremely beautiful, my lady," Beo replied. They both started giggling and staring at each other with so much love and interest. After that day, the relationship flourished, and a few months later, Beo got married to Abigail. Because Abigail came from a wealthy home, Beo also became very rich and lacked nothing. A year after his marriage, his wife Abigail gave birth to two bouncing baby boys. It was from one good news to another for Beo. About a year later, Binger, who was his childhood friend, also fell in love with Bisola, the orange seller. They got married not too long after but had no children. Beo, on the other hand, welcomed another set of twins again with his wife. Binger and his wife Bisola prayed and prayed, but they remained childless. One day, Beo, who felt pity for his friend's situation, decided to take Binger and his wife to a popular fertility herbalist who was famous for helping families have children in their village. On getting there, the money required for local testing and herbs was too expensive for Binger to afford, but his kind friend Beo paid for it all. Binger and his wife got tested and were given some herbal drinks to take home. They were asked to return in 2 days for the results of the test. Binger and his wife went to the herbalist after 2 days and were both told that Binger is the source of their childlessness. He has what is known as low sperm count. In the modern world, this condition means he won't be able to impregnate a woman easily. "Why me?" Binger cried. His wife, Bisola, pacified him, and they left the herbalist. A week later, Binger's mother came to visit them. Bisola was so glad to see her mother-in-law, and as she rushed to meet her and help her with her luggage, a loud slap landed across her cheek. "Go away!" Binger's mother shouted. Bisola fell on the ground, weeping and devastated. "Mama, I am not God. I also want children," Bisola said while crying. "You are just useless. I am sure your womb can only carry stones. Very soon, I will bring a new wife for my son." Binger's mother continued to insult and emulate Bisola. Throughout all this, Bisola could have easily revealed that her husband is the cause of their childlessness, but she resisted all the insults and blame from her mother-in-law. She didn't want to expose her husband. Binger returned in the evening, and his mother continued the insults on Bisola while telling her son she had found him a very beautiful and fertile wife who would bear him many children instead of the empty barrel he calls wife. "Mama, that is enough. I won't let you disrespect my wife in my presence. As soon as the sun rises tomorrow, please return to your husband's house," Binger angrily said to his mother. "She has charmed my son," his mother began shouting. It was hell for Bisola anywhere she turned. Even the villagers mocked her for not having a child. 5 years into their marriage, still, they had no child. One day, Bisola was returning from the market, carrying so much load. A young boy came to help her with some of the things she was carrying. The boy's mother saw him and rushed out to pull the boy away from helping Bisola. "If you need a child to assist you, why don't you give birth to one?" the woman said. Tears began to drop from Bisola's eyes. One midnight, Binger woke his wife. He wanted to discuss something with her. "What is it, my husband?" Bisola asked him. "I need you to do something for me," Binger replied. "What do you need?" "You know I will do anything for you," Bisola confidently said. And in tears, he continued, "I want you to have an affair with another man so you can get pregnant." "May the gods forbid." "Why would you think of such?" she angrily said. Binger proceeded to persuade her. He said it would be a secret between them, and no one would know about it. Bisola was so disgusted. She said she wouldn't involve herself in anything relating to fornication. She also added that when it was time, the gods would give them children. Binger argued that time wasn't on their side anymore, and according to the herbalist, his low sperm count would make having children very difficult. He also added that he was tired of hearing everyone blaming Bisola for something that isn't her fault. Doing this would take away all our shame, Binger cried. Bisola angrily left him in the room that night. Ever since then, Binger stopped eating at home. He stopped talking to his wife for over 2 weeks, and when Bisola got tired of his cold shoulder, she decided to do what he wanted. "Okay, if it will make you happy, I will do as you wish," Bisola told him one morning. He was overjoyed and hugged her tight while saying, thank you, my wife." Bisola asked a question: "What if the man I do this with comes back to ask for his child?" Binger didn't know what to say. After some time, he finally replied, "I think we need to look for a man that we trust, someone with an upright character." And for days, they thought about who they could trust to help them out. But Binger later informed Bisola he thinks his friend Bayo would be perfect for this. "Your friend Bayo?" Bisola said, disgusted by the thought of it alone. Binger claimed Bayo is like his brother, and he's sure he would be perfect for this. He also added, after all, Bayo's wife gave birth to twins 3 times in 6 years. Bisola agreed, and Binger promised to speak to Bayo later that week. 3 days later, Binger texted Bayo before a confused-looking Bayo. Bayo instantly rejected, but Binger didn't want to take no for an answer. He also threatened to commit suicide if Bayo didn't help him impregnate his wife. "Please, sleep with my wife. It is only you I trust," Binger said in tears. After days of back and forth, Bayo finally agreed to help his friend. Bayo excused them while his friend Bayo and his wife Bisola did what had to be done. 2 weeks later, Bisola was confirmed pregnant. Binger was very happy about this news, and when Abigail began to grow, it became the talk of the village. After 9 months, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, later named Ollie. But things took a sad turn after Ollie clocked 2 years. Binger began to beat the 2-year-old boy at any given and ungiven opportunity, down to beating the boy for not eating fast enough. Bisola always tried to plead with Binger by reminding him that Ollie is still too young to be treated that way. But Binger would always say, "Are you trying to say he is not my son?" Or, "I don't know what is good for my son anymore?" Bisola was always quick to retreat whenever Binger gaslighted her this way. As the child grew, Binger's hatred for the boy also grew. The year Ollie clocked 7, Binger beat him for playing ball without wearing slippers. He even stepped up wickedly by putting pepper in the young boy's nose. Bisola did nothing about this. She was totally helpless. Ollie looked so confused as to why his own father treats him this way. Days turned to weeks and weeks to months. Now 19 years of age, Ollie wanted to start an Ankara fabric business. He begged his father for some money, but he refused to give it to him. His mother promised to try her best to get him the money in 3 months, so he just had to be patient. The following week, Binger's best friend, Bayo, came to visit them with his wife. Abigail prepared food for them, and Binger asked Ollie to go get some drinks for their visitors. He returned with the drinks, placed them on the table, and left to bring some cups. As he got to the sitting room, one of the cups dropped and broke on the floor. "See this imbecile of a boy," Binger shouted in front of the visitors. He immediately gave Ollie a slap, kicked him, and hit his head on the wall. Bisola started crying. Even Bayo's wife screamed, "Bayo, please stop," but he refused and continued to kick. Ollie froze. He didn't know how to interfere. Abigail begged him to stop his friend, and as he tried to pull Binger from Ollie, Binger shouted, "He's my son, isn't he? You have no right to tell me when to stop beating my own son." Bayo and his wife angrily left. That evening, when they got home, Abigail asked Bayo why he wouldn't talk some senses into his best friend, Binger, and stop him from abusing his son. Every time Abigail cautioned her wife not to interfere in Binger's family matters any longer, Bayo replied, "It is not our business." The next day, Abigail went back to see Bisola and Ollie. When she knew her husband wouldn't be around, she went with fruits and various healing medicines. She advised Bisola to take the boy away from the house and maybe send him to their relatives. "Binger will kill me if I try such a thing," Bisola fearfully said. Ollie, who was listening to the conversation, also agreed with what Abigail had proposed. He begged his mother to let him leave, but she refused. He looked frustrated. He narrated how his father refused to give him money to start his trade, and now he feels very useless. Hearing this, Abigail asked him how much he needed for the Ankara fabric business and immediately gave him the money with some extra change. He thanked her, and Abigail left. Later that evening, Ali packed some of his belongings and left the house. He headed to Abigail's brother's home. In the morning, Binger went to wake Ali to cut the growing grasses in the compound, but he was nowhere to be found. He looked everywhere for him, to no avail. "Bisola, where's your stupid son?" he asked. Bisola, who was busy cooking, was surprised to hear this, and before she could utter a word, he started beating and kicking her, insisting she must know Ali's whereabouts. But Bisola was clueless. She kept on crying and telling Binger she had no idea where their son might be. Ali got to Abigail's brother's house safely. He met only Abigail at home. She received him warmly, and he narrated everything that happened. Abigail pitied the boy. She immediately suggested he leaves the village as soon as possible. He agreed, and they decided he would go and stay with Abigail's brother in the neighboring village. "You shouldn't travel today, so stay here, and very early tomorrow morning, you can leave for my brother's place," Abigail said. She brought him food, and Ali thanked her. Binger was still looking all over for Ali when he tried to ask his wife where the boy got the money to start a business from. Bisola lied at first that she gave him the money, but Binger didn't believe her, and he started another round of beating on her. She finally confessed that Abigail gave the money, and after this, Binger had a clue where the boy might be. He immediately picked a cutlass and started running to his friend's place. As Ali was eating, Bayo came in and was surprised to see Binger. They exchanged greetings, and he went into the room to ask his wife, Abigail, about what was going on. Abigail narrated everything, and Bayo reminded her he had warned her not to interfere in his friend Binger's family affair. Abigail argued that she couldn't just stand by and watch the entire village keep watching the way her friend mistreats his son, and no one has tried to do anything. "I am tired of just watching," she added. Bayo was still wrapping his head around the whole issue when they heard a heavy knock on their door. It was Binger. He started screaming at Bayo to bring out his son, wherever he was hiding him. "If you don't bring out that boy, I will expose you," Binger threatened. "Expose what?" Abigail asked, looking confused. Bayo started pleading with Binger, who was smiling wickedly. Bayo tried to go and bring Ali out, but his wife blocked the entrance. "I said, his son isn't here. Let him do his worst," Abigail said loud and clear. "I will expose your secrets if you don't bring that boy. I will tell your wife everything," Binger continued to threaten Bayo. "But you begged me to do this as a favor to you," Bayo replied, almost in tears at this point. Abigail was totally lost in the conversation. She asked her husband what he meant, but he couldn't give her any answer. "You mean you only helped your friend by sleeping with his wife?" Binger fired back. Abigail looked at Bayo for answers. He couldn't look at his wife. "Let me even say everything. Your husband slept with my wife and even impregnated her, which produced that bastard, that stupid boy." Binger almost fainted. "Believe me, Binger practically begged me to help him and his wife because they couldn't have any children," Bayo told his wife. Frustratingly. "So, you couldn't refuse, right? I begged you to help me sleep with my wife, my own wife. Can you also accept such?" "You sound like an idiot, in case you don't know," mockingly fired back. "Whoa, everything that was said came out of hiding, so you are my father, yet you watched this monster treat your son like an animal?" he asked in tears. And after that day of revelation, Binger started drinking heavily. He became a full-time drunk, and the gist of his inability to impregnate a woman spread across the whole village. Bisola left him, and he was all alone till the end of his life.